Hi, welcome to my Facebook page. I'm Judith Patterson, and if you're watching the replay, you may be watching on YouTube, so good to have you here. If you're watching the replay on my Facebook page, go ahead and hit hashtag replay in the comments if you don't mind, and just let me know that you're watching. So yesterday, in my Facebook mini catalog celebration launch party or launch event in my Facebook group, I had a good question during my live. Hey Lisa, I was just about to talk about you. So Lisa asked last night how I choose how to color my images when I'm stamping and creating cards and scrapbook pages and things. I thought that was a great question, and the short answer is I do what I feel like doing. Like if I want to paint, then I do my watercolors. If I want to color with pencils, then I color with pencils. If I'm in a hurry, then a lot of times I'll use the watercolor pencils, or I'll do a really fast watercolor wash. It just depends on how I'm feeling, but that's the short answer. The longer answer is, well, let's just get into all the different colors or ways to color and the different, the way they work on different materials. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my camera around. So just right off the bat, we've got Stampin' Blends, or not Stampin' Blends, blender pens. Stampin' Blends are these, and we'll use these later. But we have blender pens, and these work really great with watercolor pencils. Or you can use them, actually you can use them a couple of ways. So this one I have marked bleach because sometimes I use my blender pen, just this one, with a little glass container of bleach, and I bleach my cardstock. I love doing that with like flowers and leaves, especially. So that's one way to use them. Another way to use them is to take, you grab an ink pad. So I squeeze the ink pad with the heels of my hands and open it up, and then I have this nice pool of ink in the lid, so I can just pick a little up and I can add color, and it gives it a soft coloring technique. So I use that if I'm not coloring huge spaces, so that would be something great to color this little otter with, and he's just something I had sitting beside me. You can also use them, you can grab a watercolor pencil, and we'll make this otter have a purple tummy. So I'm just going to color that real quick, and then I can take this, that does not go in that lid. Take this blender pen and smooth it out. So it still has a little bit of a watercolor pencil, like a colored pencil look, but it also just softens it out and smooths it, and you can blend colors in real easy that way. So if you want to do some blending, blender pens and watercolor pencils are a great combination. So it depends on what images you have, how large they are. I use watercolor pencils and blender pens. Actually, I pretty much use those on anything. They work great on the shimmery white cardstock, and they work really good on the watercolor paper. But they also work great, like you could see, they work great on the white cardstock. You just don't want to blend too much, because then you'll start blending your paper off, and that's not good. So then we have the 2 sets of watercolor pencils. I've had these for a very long time, as you can tell, since they're green instead of black and white. But that just goes to show they do last a really long time. I use them quite often. Then we have Stampin' Write markers. They come in color family sets. These are great too. I don't use these as often anymore since we have the blends now. Love the Stampin' Blends. But like the Stampin' Blends, they have a fine point. So I do use these when, like if I'm adding some detail to like balloon strings or something like that, then I'll use these. And even the other side is a finer point than the blends, I think. Just a smidge. So these are a great option for adding color, especially if you want like a bright, good saturated color. And then we have the blending brushes, which I love for creating fun backgrounds. I find excuses to use these all the time, but I like to use these for doing backgrounds or adding a soft little bit of color to a large area. And I like this because you can start out really, really light and you can get as dark as you want with them. Then we also have watercolor water painters. So again, you fill these with water. And then I like to use this wide brush to just do a watercolor wash. People make fun of how I say that word, but it's the only way I know how. Okay, so you just get it wet, and to do a watercolor wash, you want to get it really wet. And it works best on watercolor, the fluid 100 paper, or the shimmery white cardstock. So I would just brush back and forth and give it a nice color. And this is another great way to do for backgrounds, or if you do emboss resist. So if you stamp in like Versamark and then heat emboss it with the white embossing powder, then you can do this over it and it makes it so pretty. And then to clean it, just rub it on a paper towel or your scrap piece of paper until the ink comes out. You can also run it under a faucet. I'm going to stop right there before I get that super wet. So it does go back to what mood I'm in, but also what image I'm coloring. So like today I want to use the Catching Butterflies stamp set. So I think that you could use anything to color this one. But today I'm going to use blends and I'm going to use watercolor pencils. Watercolor pencils, like I said, that's my go-to. If I'm in a hurry, if I want to do a quick and easy card. When I started stamping, I used watercolor pencils a lot, so I guess you could kind of say it's like going back and to my comfort place. So I've already stamped her on this. Oh, Stampin' Up! Also has pastels now, and I have not played with those yet. They are on page 126 in the annual catalog. This is the May 2021 to April 2022 catalog. But it's an assortment of 8 colors, and it looks like not all, but most of them are brights. So there's Coastal Cabana, Daffodil Delight, Gorgeous Grape, Granny Apple Green, Mango Melody, Mossy Meadow, Night of Navy, and Poppy Parade. I don't know what all you could do with them. I'm imagining, of course, you could just color with them like pastels. But I think you could probably use the watercolor painters with them too. And just like rub the tip of the watercolor painter on the pastel with it wet, of course. And then color your image and just pick up what color straight from the pastel and then color, I think. But again, it really depends on your preference, what you like to do. It also depends on what colors you're wanting to use, because not everything has every color. So like these watercolor pencils, there's only 2 assortments. So if what you want, if the color you want to use isn't in here, then that wouldn't be an option. But if there is something that would work for you, then absolutely. And there's a good range of colors in this, so you could probably make a do. It may not match exactly, but the great thing about watercolor pencils is you can color really light, or like the blending brushes, you can go really dark. It just depends on how you want to color. So is that clear as mud? I will say I use the Stays On jet black ink when I'm watercoloring. So typically anything to do with water, I use jet black Stays On. The rest of the time, especially if I'm using the blends, then I use the Tuxedo Black Memento ink for my base black ink. All right, so let's color her real quick, and let me just show you how quick and easy it is to color with these watercolors and using the blender pens. And like I said, I think that these are the perfect starting point. Like if you're just beginning to stamp and start collecting stamping supplies, because you have a lot of options with these. And especially if you add in the blender pens, because when you add the blender pens, you can also use the ink pads. So as your ink colors grow, your coloring options will grow. So some of the colors I want are in one package and the other colors are in the other one. So I like to use the Flirty Flamingo to color the skin, but very lightly. Like I don't add much at all because I don't want her looking like she's got a sunburn. Yeah, this may not be. I think Calypso Coral actually is what I usually use. So let's see what that looks like. It's Pumpkin Pie. Let's just do that. Yep, Calypso Coral is what I usually use. Maybe that'll tone down some of the pink. Maybe it won't. We'll see. So I'm going to color her dress with Gorgeous Grape. And then her hair with Early Espresso. And like I said, you can go light or you can go dark. I'm staying pretty light with everything. In fact, I went a little bit darker with on the net than I had thought I would. Do you have any questions about the different types of coloring tools or anything? Just using that Memento ink to ink up the butterflies. We'll put some of those there. And then there's this one tiny little butterfly that's all by itself, and she's trying to catch that one. And oh my goodness, look what I did there. Let me think of how I'm going to fix that. I know how I'm going to fix that. So I've been doing that a lot today. Be careful on these rubber stamps how hard you're pushing. And I did it again. A lot of times I keep a paper towel handy to just wipe off when there's a lot of an edge like that. So I'm going to grab my Melon Mambo, and I'm just going to color the butterfly real quick. And then I'm going to get out a blender pen. Smooth it out. Then I'm going to get my paper snips. I'm just going to trim around it really quickly. So 9 times out of 10, when you're stamping and you have an oopsie moment, then that's just a time to get a little bit more creative and just make something a little extra with your card. So see, I think that this, yep, then it just looks like the beating of the wings. That's what we're going to go with. Okay, so let me get that Melon Mambo. Color that butterfly. And the blend. So there's 2 options to fix this here. I can either just use a couple of little mini dimensionals. No, it's just going to take 1 mini dimensional and put it right here. And like it's, hey Beverly, good evening. So I can put it right there and we'll pretend like that little boo-boo. I don't even know if y'all can see it. Can y'all see that? So it looks like just the wind moving from the butterfly's wings flapping. It is not going to focus. Or I can move it up a little. And then I could put a little bit of bling on it. But I think I'm going to just leave it right there. Put down an extra dimensional. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this one down here in the corner. So this is the really quick and easy version of this card. I'm going to finish coloring these butterflies. Then I'm going to use that blender pen again and just smooth all of these colors out. And if you go from your lightest color to your darkest color, it makes cleaning it in between colors a lot easier. Yeah, this girl's been out in the sun too long. She is really pink. So I did not go lightest to darkest. I just kind of went real random on this one. So some things that I use to color or not color, but cover mistakes. Always bling if it's small. And bows, ribbon, those are really good. Just little strips of designer series paper. Sentiments, so I could have maybe put a sentiment up there, but then I would have covered up the butterfly and the net, and it wouldn't have been as good. So I have a gorgeous grape card base right here. I never stuck that little guy down. There we go. So I'm just gonna finish that off. Do y'all have any other ideas for covering up oopsies when you're stamping? There is a quick and simple beginner card. So then, let me grab my Stamparatus, ink her up. Oh my goodness. I got ink on my thumb. Okay. So I'm going to start by coloring her with some blends. I've got dark cinnamon cider for her hair. And the card layout is basically the same as the other one. We're just going to step it up a notch. And I'm changing the colors up a little bit too. And adding a couple of other elements. Okay, so I'm going to use the Ivory Stampin' Blend to color her. And then I'm going to use the light Pool Party to, no, I'm not coloring the net yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the butterflies here. And I'm going to stamp the small butterfly I'm going to use that paper towel I talked about right here. There we go. That's so much better. So these butterflies are going to be Flirty Flamingo, and I am using the dark one. I'm out of Wink of Stella. If I had Wink of Stella, I would use that to color these butterflies. That would be fun. And you can also use Wink of Stella like a blender pen or a watercolor brush and dip it into the ink just lightly and color with it that way. It's pretty cool. Okay, so now we're stepping it up a notch. I have this really pretty paper from Daffodil Afternoon Designer Series paper. It is also from Celebration. It's 12 by 12. It's free with a $50 purchase. So I'm just going to stick that right there. And then I have, I think this is big enough. Yeah, I have a scrap of basic white I'm going to put right there. I haven't tried stamping these both at the same time. We're going to see how that works. Hopefully we're all good. Okay, so I'm going to ink those up. And then we'll fussy cut these. That worked like a dream. And then I don't have to color her dress because it's already colored. And it has this nice little pattern. So anytime we get designer series paper that has a small pattern like this, I always think, okay, what do I have that needs a pattern on it? And her dress popped to mind very first thing. Need to cut just a smidge closer. But I like too that this isn't super intricate and the net is real easy to cut out. In hindsight, I should have already had this cut out. So y'all didn't have to sit and watch this. So is everybody getting back into normal routines now that the holidays are over? I know we're starting to around here. It's not quite back to normal yet, but it's close. I think next week we'll be back to our normal schedule 100%. Okay, now because of how tight this is and how I want to put it on her, I'm going to take my black Stampin' Wrap marker, which is the only marker that you can buy individually now. So I'm just taking the brush end and I'm going to go around. And I've tried this with the black blend also, but it doesn't work as well with the black blend. It tends to bleed a little bit. I should have cut this just a little bit closer, I think, but it's all good. It just gives it a more finished look, which I really like when I'm layering clothes on. Have ink all over my fingers today. There we go. Something else is the blends. If you kind of slip a little and rub it on the back, it might bleed through. So that's not good. Oh, that's a fun pattern too. Go. Now she's got clothes on. Okay, so now I'm going to take that light pool party marker and just really quickly color this net. And you could leave the net without color on it, but I like it with color. Just cutting it out real fast. And then the net we'll put on with dimensionals and give it just that little bit of dimension. Let it pop up just a smidge. And I am going to go ahead and just brush around it really fast. There we go. And wouldn't you know it, somehow I have inked up my cardstock. Okay, so I have a pool party mat here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on my Flirty Flamingo card base. The mat is cut 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to go ahead and now put this piece on. And this one is 4 by 5 1/4. Then I'm going to take this net and my dimensionals. Now I always, when I get to the end, I always save my dimensionals and I just cut the edges up because I don't want to waste any. There we go. And then I have another sheet of basic white. This is 1 1/4 inches by 1 1/4 inches. I'm just going to stamp the sentiment in the middle. I'm going to put it on a 1 1/2 inch square piece of pool party cardstock. And I'm going to use those dimensional bits again. Covered up some of that ink smudge with that sentiment, and then I have those Iridescent rhinestone jewels. Love these so much. So I'm gonna grab my take your pick tool, and I'm gonna put one down here, and then I'm gonna put one up here. I'm gonna grab a small one and put it right there. So that is our stepped, and you know what? I'm gonna put one more little one right here. So that's our stepped up version of this basic card. So do you have a favorite out of the two? Do you have any questions about coloring or any of the different coloring tools, or do you have any other questions Stampin' Up related? Y'all just let me know and I'll do my best to answer them, either here or on the group or on YouTube or wherever. Oh, thanks, Lisa. I love the stamp set. Let me show it to you again. So this one also, so everything, not the cardstock and the bling, but the stamps and that designer series paper, those were both from Celebration, which means they're free with a qualifying purchase. And Celebration goes through February 28th, so there's time to get those, but things do start selling out towards the end. So that's something to keep in mind. And I was going to remind y'all too that Monday is the 10th, I believe. Yes, Monday is the 10th. And so that is the last day to order or to subscribe to Paper Pumpkin and get that heart kit. So you can come to the February Zoom class where we put together kits and just chat. But if you miss that, then you can always do the next one. But you could also get any of the kits. There's that new birthday kit that Stampin' Up! Has to offer, and there's several others too. So, and you have until January 26th to do that. All right, well, if y'all don't have any questions, I'm gonna hop off of here and go eat some dinner. But thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Happy stamping!